Okay, last fraction issue. We're now going to divide fractions by one another. So as always, for some reason I can't start out with DocuCam on. Okay, so let's start out with 7/8 divided by 1/4. Fractions like this with no whole numbers involved, then what you do is you flip the second fraction and then multiply straight across. So with this one, we're going to take 7/8. We're going to multiply it by 1. And then we just multiply our numerators and our denominators. So 7 times 4. I just ended with an improper fraction, which we don't want to, so let's flip that into a mixed number. So take your 8. Now with this one, we have a problem that or a fraction that we can reduce to a lowest term, so make sure you do that. And you end up final answer. So with this one, we didn't have any whole numbers involved. We just had simple fractions. With just having simple fractions involved, you just flip the second fraction over and you multiply. So we took our 7/8 and we multiplied it by 4/1. And we multiplied our numerators and our denominators straight across the board, and we got 28/8. That as an improper fraction, we turned it into a mixed number, and we reduced that mixed number to lowest terms. Okay? So pretty simple if it's just simple fractions with no whole numbers involved. Now, when you do have a whole number involved, it's still simple. You just have to do an extra little step. And just like with the multiplication of fractions, first thing we want to do is get rid of that whole number. And you get rid of it the same way that you got rid of it with multiplication. I'm going to take that denominator, I'm going to multiply it by my whole number, and I'm going to add my numerator. So I'm going to take 3. I'm going to take that 3 and I'm going to add it to my numerator. 3, 5. And that sets me up with my new fraction of 5/3. Now, let's do the same thing on the other side. Let's take our denominator 2 and multiply it by our whole number, which gives us 6. We're going to take that 6 and we're going to add it to this whole number up here, or I'm sorry, this numerator up here. 7. So we have 7/2. Now we have a simple fraction with no whole numbers. So just like we got done doing, we're going to flip this second fraction and then multiply across the board. So this now turns into 5/3 times 7. And now we can multiply our numerators and denominators, which gives. And that's your final answer. It's a proper fraction and it's reduced to its lowest form. So once we get rid of those whole numbers and we end up with just our two simple fractions, then we're going to do just like we did previously. We're going to take that second fraction, we're going to flip it, and then we're going to multiply across. Okay? So let's practice another one. Let's take this one. Let's take 4 3/8 divided by 1 3/4. Again, I'm going to get rid of those whole numbers first thing. So I'm going to take my denominator and I'm going to multiply whole number, and 8 times 4 is 32. I'm going to take that 32 and add it to my numerator. 5. So this fraction is going to be 35/8 divided by, again, taking care of this one, I got to take that denominator, multiply it by my whole number. It gives me 4. I'm going to take that whole or that new number, that 4, and add it to my numerator. So this one over here is 7/4. So now we have two simple fractions with no whole numbers. So in order to divide it, remember we're going to flip the second fraction and then multiply across the board. So it gives you 35/8 times 4/7. Now I'm going to multiply straight across, and again, I've already worked this out. So when I do that, it gives me 140/56. Okay? Obviously, another improper fraction, so I'm going to take that improper fraction, turn it into a mixed number. I'm going to do that by taking my denominator. I know that 56 can go into 42 times. Gives me 12. When I do my math, I end up with 28. So my answer ends up being 2 and again, I can look at, I'm sorry, I'm crooked. I can look at 2/28/56, and I can tell that that number can be reduced. In fact, I know that 28 goes into 56 twice. So I'm going to reduce my fraction so I don't get it wrong, and I end up with 2 1/2 for my final answer. Okay? So let's walk through this one again. I had my original problem that had whole numbers involved. So the very first thing I wanted to do was get rid of those whole numbers. In order to do that, I took my denominator, I multiplied it by that whole number, and I added my numerator. When I did that, over here I got 35/8, and over here I got 7/4. So here was my new problem that was whole number free. Once I get it whole number free, I can swap that second fraction, flip it upside down, and then multiply across. So I took 35/8 times 4/7. It gave me 140/56. Improper fraction that we have to switch and turn into a mixed number. When I did that and reduced it, I ended up with 2 1/2. Let's do one more. Okay. Our problem we'll start out with is 5 1/2 divided by 2 1/2. First thing I want to do is get rid of those whole numbers. So I'm going to take 5 times 2, gives me 10. Add that 10 to my numerator. 11. So this one is 11/2 divided by 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. 4 plus 1 equals 5. So I have 5 halves over here. Okay? So now I'm going to swap it. I now have two fractions that don't have whole numbers, so I can flip the second fraction and then multiply across the board. So this is 11/2 times 2. Multiplying straight across, I get 20. Know that that is an improper fraction that I need to change into a mixed number. So I'll take my 10, divide it into my 22, that denominator, and divide it into my numerator. I end up with a number of, where do I want to put it? And 2 2/10. I look at that number. I know it can be reduced. I know that 2 will go into both 2 and 10. So I'm going to reduce it down. And my answer ends up being. Okay. So that is how you divide fractions. Very first thing you do is get rid of the whole number. You do that by multiplying the denominator by the whole number, adding 1. And again, that's your new numerator. The denominator never changes. So you get to this form down here where you have two fractions that you want to divide by one another that are simple fractions. They don't have whole numbers involved. When you get to that point, you can just flip the second fraction and then multiply your numerators and denominators across the board. So we took this 5/2 and we flipped it to 2/5, and then we multiplied across the board. ending up getting 22/10. Took that improper fraction, turned it into a mixed number, and then we reduce that. All right, so go practice. All of these questions, I just basically worked through worksheet number 1. I pulled these questions from that. So this is how you work these. Hopefully, based off of these examples, you'll be able to work every problem in the worksheet. If you have any questions or concerns, again, as always, call me, email me. I'm more than happy to work with you.